Hi everyone, my name is Darlene and this is what I believe. My first verse comes from Luke chapter 10 verse 27. He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." As Christians, we are to have a heartfelt love for God, an emotion that runs so deep into the fiber of our being that we willingly give all that we have and all that we are to the glory of God. The wisdom and the knowledge that we've gained through our life experiences have shaped us into who He created us to be. And on top of that, we're to love not just ourselves, but others. This verse is the core to the foundation of my Christian belief because it brings confidence into who He created us to be and what He created us to do. He gifted each Christian with everything that they need to know to have a personal relationship with Him so they can fulfill His purpose for their lives. Once we truly let go of our own will and submit to the will of God, it becomes crystal clear what we need to do and what road we need to travel and what changes we need to make in life. The next verse comes from Luke chapter 10 verse 18. Whoever listens to you listens to me. Whoever rejects you rejects me. But whoever rejects me rejects him who sent me. Our actions and our beliefs are a reflection of our relationship with Christ. A Christian's life is a testimony to the greatness of God. Rejecting a Christian is rejecting God. It's not a matter for us to take lightly or to blend in with other world views. Each of us must examine the foundation for our moral and ethical beliefs so that we might glorify God and not ourselves or things of this world. The moral fabric of our society hinges on each person taking a stand for truth, justice, and fairness, all of which are impossible without God. When you begin to understand that the ultimate authority is God, He shines through your actions and your behaviors. The next verse comes from Psalm chapter 1, verses 1 and 2. Blessed is the one who does not walk in step with the wicked, or stand in the way that sinners take, or sit in the company of mockers, but whose delight is in the law of the Lord, and who meditates on His law day and night. I've spent many mornings walking around Windsor Lake. I've put nearly 350 miles on my shoes. It takes me an hour each day, and I spend that time building my relationship with Christ. One issue that I have been laboring over involved a relationship that I was in with somebody that had a severe mental illness. In 1 minute, he would mock and taunt me for being a Christian and what I believed, and then the next minute he was suddenly a believer in Christ. It caused me a great deal of stress. But God revealed the answer to me on those walks around the lake. It helped me to focus all of me on Christ. Soon, I found the strength to no longer subject myself to the manipulation that I was going through, because if anybody truly believed in Christ, he would not belittle or mock those of us that do truly believe in Christ. God showed me the way, and He gave me the strength and the wisdom to follow what He placed in my heart. While my battle with evil has just begun in the courtroom, I know that I can stand tall knowing that God is right there beside me. As far as insight that I have gained in this course, the first issue would be on the use of reproductive technologies as a means to conceive a child. I believe that life is given by God alone. If the desire for a child is so great in a couple that's unable to conceive a child, adoption should be the first consideration, because there are so many children that have been orphaned and would love nothing more than to be welcomed into a loving home. And then you have Octomom, who hasn't set a very good example of what reproductive technology can do. Conceiving, she's had a total of 12 kids, and as a single mom, she's not able to take care of them. She's had to submit herself to doing unscrupulous acts just to care for her children. The next involves my views on capital punishment. You know, many of the people that commit these serious violent crimes have serious mental disorders. Yet, as Christians, we're supposed to love them anyway. In good conscience, I cannot justify trading my salvation to sentence somebody to death because I have a vengeful heart. Especially when I'm not doing everything that I can to improve the conditions or to prevent the problem in the first place. But for some, there is no hope. You know, the mass murderers and serial killers live in a different reality, full of evil and demonic intentions. In this case, maybe the best thing that we can do to glorify God is to help them stand before Him in judgment. Then there's Terri Schiavo, who was kept alive for 15 years on supplemental nutrition and hydration while her family, the courts, they tried to sort through whether or not it was inhumane or cruel to remove her feeding tubes. When she was in a permanent vegetative state with no hope of recovery, or at least recovering the quality of life that she had. I believe that nature should be left to take its course when it comes to dying. If there was hope for recovery, it's one thing, but once you reach a poor prognosis of not being able to regain any of your quality of life, I believe that that is when the supportive measures should be taken away and let nature take its course as God intended. In my case study, it involves this very thing. I had a friend who, her ex-husband was a very talented artist, and after they got divorced, he moved back home to Louisiana and was commissioned to paint a billboard. Well, 24 hours after he started, he was in a coma in the hospital. He had acquired encephalitis from mosquito bites. After 3 weeks being in the hospital, he was in a persistent or a permanent vegetative state with no electroencephalogram activity. His prognosis was poor. Prognosis was poor for having any kind of quality of life. If he did recover, his family had to decide whether or not to remove him from life support. He had no advance directives or will. They finally decided that they would remove all supportive measures, and they actually allowed his sister to take him home. She's a registered nurse, and he lived for 3 weeks and died in his sleep in his home. In ancient times, there wasn't anything, like what we have to keep people alive. Nature just had to take its course, and it occurred in God's time, not man's. The one thing that I'm still unsure about is how mental illness impacts Christians' beliefs. Nearly 20% of the American population suffers from a recognizable mental illness ranging from mild to severe. That's 1 out of 5. Here we are 3 years later, and it seems we have an even higher prevalence of mental illness than even in 2012. In a recent sermon, a pastor tells the congregation that 20 years ago, 1 million children attended Sunday school regularly, and a few years ago, only 400,000 were regular. And that was just in the Lutheran Church alone. It was easy for me to see the obvious decline in the moral fabric of society and the impact increasing rates of mental illness have on. Evil has seeped in through more sophisticated forms to distract the minds of those easily influenced by the ways of the world. Technology is being used to target Christian populations because there is the Islamic State that's killing anyone that does not embrace radical Islamic law. It's being used to create fear, generate chaos, and infect the minds of those who do not have a secure understanding of their worldview. I'm undecided because a lot of this abuse and things that lead to severe mental illness are identified in early childhood and in the early formative years in the home. Uh, a child that comes from an abusive home or one that has permissive parenting where maybe they're not really involving themselves as much as they should in their kids' lives. Um, all of that has long-term psychological damage, and they find new ways to cope and have defense mechanisms, and oftentimes they're not the right ones to have, or they're unhealthy, and they just keep building on that as they progress through life. So I'm not sure how mental illness would really impact a lot of the ethical decisions, especially surrounding capital punishment, or even just basic moral character. Um, so that's my take, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.